Lawrence Pintack, is there a kind of a digital divide now between those who can access the web and those who can't? You already have many people in the world who don't have things like water, electricity. Is there now something else that is cutting them off from the world economy?
There certainly is. There's no doubt about that. But internet penetration rates really are growing. I saw a figure just this morning of 10 million people here in Egypt out of 80 million who have access to the web. Well, that's certainly not everyone. There certainly is a huge divide, but the penetration rates are increasing. I want to go back and touch on one thing Joy said, though. I found it interesting when he talked about media literacy and separating fact from fiction and using the word Wikipedia in the same breath. This is, to my mind and many others, an example of the problem. A Wikipedia is not an encyclopedia. It is not something you can trust. There's a lot of great information there, but you or I or the guy down on the street pulling the donkey cart can go on and post information, and all of that is read by the readers equally.
Well, can I disagree a little bit? So on the very important articles, I think the average time that you can have vandalism left there is really minutes. And I think it's about media literacy, because the rule of Wikipedia is that you cannot do any primary work on Wikipedia. Every single fact on Wikipedia must have an outside citation, and it actually relies on the mainstream media for the most part. So I think you have to look at Wikipedia not as an encyclopedia, but as a portal to other media where you're going to actually go for the primary research.
Joy, I want to raise one other issue, and that's to do with privacy, because the web inventor, the man himself, Tim Berners-Lee, has said that a person's browsing habits can be monitored as if there's a television camera in the room watching you there and then. Does this kind of progress come at a price? How concerned should we be about online privacy or the lack of it?
Right, so I think privacy is very much like the environmental issue. I think it's going to get worse before everyone really realizes how bad it is. I think it's in a terrible state right now, where our software and our services really give governments as well as companies the ability to monitor everything. The problem is that unless the people realize that this is something that they want to protect and that this will cause things like racial and political profiling, I don't think it's going to get better.
Time for a short break now, but when we come back, we'll look at the power of the web for protest and activism. Stay with us. Welcome back. As early as 1989, the Velvet Revolution in the former Czechoslovakia used the web to spread the message of protest and to get people out onto the streets. Even in recent times, the web has frequently been used by political activists as a platform to criticize the authorities. In response, certain governments have escalated tactics against bloggers, web activists, and anti-government protest groups. They resort to blocking websites that don't conform to their ideology or image. Just 1 week ago, the government of Bangladesh blocked access to a content-sharing site, YouTube, because it contained an audio recording of an encounter between angry army officers and the Prime Minister. Certain governments are also known to track down activists and arrest them. For example, China, equipped with its sophisticated filtering and surveillance technologies, widely known as Beijing's Great Firewall, locks up bloggers for expressing anti-government sentiments. Well, we're still joined by our guests in Doha, Joy Ito, in Cairo, Lawrence Pintack, and also in Cairo, Marwa Rakha. Marwa, what has the web allowed you to do in terms of getting your message out there?
All right, personally, I would say that I write for print media and I have my channels in the mainstream media, but having a blog and having access to the internet and websites and to what other bloggers are saying made my message stronger, and it has enabled me to spread my word. Print media, you have a lot of censorship, and most of the time I do my own self-censorship just to make sure that my article makes it to the paper. And in terms of radio shows, we have a lot of restrictions in terms of what words to use and what words not to use, and certain topics that we have to avoid altogether. But when it came to the internet, there is no censorship. I don't censor myself, I don't censor my thoughts. I just say whatever I feel that I want to say. And it has created like a huge pool of bloggers and activists where we share ideas. We don't have to agree on everything. Each one of us has their own trends and their own directions, but at the same time we share and interact, and that has been like a major factor in personal growth.
What do you make of that? You have a plethora of ideas of information out there, so in a sense the web has given power to the people by allowing them to speak out in an environment that may be hostile or repressive. But it cuts both ways, doesn't it? Because the web has also empowered those with a much more sinister agenda.
Absolutely. It is a wonderful thing that everyone can say what they want to and not go to jail, we would hope. But it's also, yes, it also opens the way for those who are spouting vitriol, hate speech, etc. But we've seen that through history, and cultures have always been able to absorb that. Just because someone's using the web to attack another race or spout some kind of nasty comments about someone else does not mean that we should be shutting it down. It is
exactly, and that doesn't mean that we should censor those voices. That's very true. Yes.
But you don't always have a choice in that, do you? Because governments have the ability to censor the internet themselves. Joy Ito, is there a limit to progress when we're talking about the web in terms of the free flow of information, freedom of speech? Because if we look at China, for example, they've cracked down on the web during the recent commemoration of the Tibetan uprising against Chinese rule. Authorities wanted to prevent protests from taking place in Lhasa, and so they simply unplugged the internet.
Well, I think that those are temporary solutions. In internet technical world, we say that the internet will find censorship as damage and route around it. And, you know, the activists in China all have access to everything, and I think it's just a matter of time. And the costs will continue to escalate. So there'll be an arms war, but I think that if China wants to join the rest of the world in the new economy and the new information age, eventually the costs will be too high to prevent everything.
But even Western search engines like Yahoo and Google will filter results, will censor themselves in China, won't they?
Right. That's why we're now setting up sites that don't filter. I'm also on the board of Witness, and we have a video hub where we're now we're collecting human rights videos that won't get censored like they do on YouTube and Yahoo. And I think people will start to realize that they can't trust commercial companies to protect their privacy or to protect free speech in all cases.